When I was 7, my father brought home a pretty lady who gave me a box of mangoes. That day, my mother, watching me relish the mangoes with such delight, signed her name on the divorce papers and jumped from the building. From then on, mangoes became the nightmare that haunted my life. So, on our wedding day, I told my husband Ethan, "If you want a divorce, just give me a mango." He held me without saying a word, and from then on mangoes became forbidden to him. On the 5th year of our marriage, on Christmas Eve, his childhood friend left a mango on his desk at the office. That day he announced he was cutting ties with Rena and fired her from the company. That day, I felt he was the man destined for me. Not until half a year later did I return from abroad, having negotiated a cooperation deal worth $1 billion. At the celebration banquet, my husband handed me a drink. After I had drunk half a glass, his former close friend, the woman who had been kicked out of the company, stood behind me and, grinning, asked, "Is the mango juice good?" I looked at my husband Ethan in utter disbelief. He was trying not to laugh. "Don't be mad," Rena insisted. "I play a little joke on you. I didn't give you any mango to eat, I only gave you a bottle of mango juice." But I think Rena's right, your problem is you don't eat mangoes. Look how happy you were just now when you drank it. I kept a cold face, lifted my hand and splashed the remaining mango juice onto the man's face, then turned and walked away. Some things are never a joke. Mangoes aren't, and neither is my decision to get a divorce. Ms. Lisa, your gastritis has relapsed due to stress-induced stimulation. Don't ever eat things you dislike again, or next time it might not just be a stomachache, you might need part of your stomach removed. Hospitalize her for observation for a day, and notify her family to come as soon as possible. Hearing the doctor's words, I fell into silence. I had worked around the clock overseas for 39 days for the new project and returned safely. I never expected that at the celebratory banquet, a single glass of mango juice from Ethan would land me straight in the hospital. Instinctively I opened Ethan pinned at the top. Just as I began to type a message, something felt off. Looking more closely, it was definitely Ethan. But he had changed his avatar. It was now a green mango. Just as I was staring blankly at the chat window, Ethan's call came in. On the phone, his voice was cold. "I'm already home." "Where are you?" I stayed silent. In the past, I would have softened, pretending to be a little girl and acting coy with him. But tonight I didn't know how to begin. Ethan sounded annoyed. "Lisa, how long are you going to keep this up?" "The hospital." Ethan was silent. He had never cared about my body. He would never have imagined that a single glass of his mango juice would send me straight to the hospital. "Wait for me at the hospital, I'll be there right away." I didn't want to deal with him, but my weakened body made me unable to move. Time passed slowly. The doctor came to check on me 3 times, and Ethan never showed up. Before falling asleep, the last time I checked my phone I saw Rena's post. "Every time I'm hurt, my mighty hero always arrives riding on auspicious clouds, it's wonderful." The picture attached was of Ethan putting a bandage on her. Rena's avatar is a ripe yellow mango, pretty, but it makes me sick. We've known each other for 10 years, and Ethan has always known my boundaries. Seasoned in the business world, he also always knew how to interact with other women. But now, he kept crossing the line again and again. So, the thread that bound our marriage, and the latest project I had negotiated, the West European cooperation worth $1 billion that would decide the company's fate, didn't need to exist anymore. The next morning I woke up and Ethan hadn't sent a single message or made a single call. I wasn't angry either. After the follow-up check showed nothing wrong, I went straight home. The 500 square meter luxury villa was something Ethan and I bought last year with cash. 7 years ago when we graduated, we squeezed into a basement sharing a bowl of instant noodles. 5 years ago when we got our marriage certificate, we celebrated with a meal at a street stall and bought a 4-inch cake on the way home. And now, I can only lick my wounds alone in the empty villa. I thought I would get used to it eventually. Just as I was going over the divorce agreement the lawyer had sent, Ethan came home. With him came a strong scent of rose perfume. The smell made me dizzy for a moment. Ethan's skin is delicate and sensitive, he's allergic to many cosmetics, and perfume is what he hates most. Because of that, during all the years we were together I never used any skincare products, and even my shampoo was chosen with care. Now that I think about it, he was just being strict with me. The man saw me lying on the sofa with a tablet and paused slightly. Last night Rena was too happy at the celebration banquet, she got drunk and fell. I sent her home first. Later it was so late and the place was so far, I just found a hotel nearby and stayed there, so I didn't come to pick you up from the hospital. I nodded, cancelled another cooperation order on the tablet, and casually replied to him, got it. Ethan opened his mouth, then faltered. It seemed my reaction wasn't what he'd anticipated. He hesitated for a moment, took 2 steps closer, lowered his eyes and said, "It's Saturday today, so stop worrying about work. I'm planning to take Rena to Paris. Do you want to come along?" On my birthday 7 years ago, Ethan and I had our picture taken at a night market for 5 yuan. Looking at the cheap Eiffel Tower backdrop in the photo, he vowed that once he had money he'd take me to Paris and take the exact same picture with me under the real Eiffel Tower. Later, our house grew bigger, the company's business flourished, and he got busier and busier. More than once he soothed me. "Lisa, this is precisely the critical period for the company's development. As the head of the company, how can I just take time off to go abroad? You're the most sensible, surely you understand, right?" I understood, so I stopped bringing up Paris and threw myself entirely into the company's affairs, adding bricks and tiles to his career. But it turned out that whenever Rena wanted to go, he always had time. I opened the next client's email and, with the same tone, said, "Three's a crowd, I'm not interested." When I said that, for some reason he seemed to exhale before continuing, "Okay, I'll grab something and go. Take care of lunch yourself, we'll eat together tonight." And this collaboration is crucial for the company to break into overseas markets. I've invited the media to a press conference next Monday. Haven't you always wanted to stand by my side openly? Next Monday is your chance, prepare yourself. After he finished, he paused and looked at me intently. "Don't worry, I'll introduce you properly this time and I won't let Rena cause trouble." I lifted my head and glanced at him coolly. I knew in my heart this was his way of making amends for last night. Still, it was fine, pulling out of the West European deal would take a few days of procedures. Announcing it at the press conference would be good. That evening, as usual I arrived at the restaurant early to wait. After 7 years together, it had almost become my habit. While waiting, I received a call from overseas. It was the counterpart from the last negotiation, and also my senior brother Daniel. Daniel's tone was gentle, and he smiled. "Lisa, about my last suggestion that you join DM, have you thought it over? Zhang's company is still too small, it doesn't befit your talent." This was his 3rd attempt to poach me. The first was 7 years ago, when I turned down a high-paying offer from a foreign firm to join Ethan's little company, taking a monthly salary of 2,500. I even had to contribute 1,000 toward the rent he and I shared. Daniel, frustrated at my wasted potential, complained and tried everything he could, but none of it made me change my mind. The next day he was at the negotiation table from a few days before, the opponent I had crushed so thoroughly he could hardly lift his head. When it ended he was half relieved, half wary. "Lisa, I heard you only earn 5,000 a month at Zhang's. Come work for me, don't let your talent be drowned by people who don't appreciate it." I smiled and refused. How could it be drowned? That was my husband's company, it was the world he and I had built over 7 years. The 3rd time was now. I paused only 3 seconds, told the waiter to bring a bottle of red, and agreed without hesitation. "Send me the address, I'll start next Tuesday." There was a 2-second pause on the other end of the line, then an explosive burst of loud laughter. Daniel, afraid I might change my mind, said good and hung up. I smiled and was about to put the phone down when a message from Ethan popped up on the screen. The situation changed, Rena couldn't wait, so I took her onto the plane first. "Have dinner on your own. When I get back, I'll have a surprise for you." A new post appeared where Rena had tagged me alone, thanks to my brother for making my dream come true. As a reward, I'll treat you to a big meal tomorrow, hee. The picture shows Rena holding Ethan's hand, a photo taken under the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It's identical to the one from 7 years ago. I stared at the photo for 2 seconds, then decisively exited and opened the chat with Daniel. Joining the company and bringing you a gift, that Western Europe deal worth $1 billion, want it? My phone was silent for a moment, then began vibrating like crazy. Yes. 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 Junior sister, you're way too good to senior brother. Yesterday was your birthday, right? The gift I bought you should have arrived too, remember to pick it up. I froze, a delicate, scattered smile rising in my throat and then growing larger. Of course, yesterday was my birthday. When Ethan watched me drink the mango juice, did he think that it was my birthday? When Ethan was putting a bandage on Rena and left me alone in the hospital, did he remember to give his wife of 7 years a birthday present? Probably he didn't. But it doesn't matter. We're getting divorced. Who would want a gift from an ex-husband? After that meal I didn't rest, I threw myself entirely into the Western Europe project. After all, it was a thing to give to my new employer, I couldn't afford a mistake. So for the next 2 days I stayed at the office, the lights burning through the night. People at the company saw it and, in the group chat where I wasn't included, whispered to one another, "What did I tell you? Director Lisa only earns $5,000 a month, she relies on Mr. Ethan for everything, food, drink, even the basics, how could she dare to throw a tantrum?" If she weren't leaning on her relationship with Mr. Ethan, with the company doing so well now, who would need her? I heard back when Mr. Ethan was starting the business it was her who held him back, otherwise the company would have gone public ages ago. Every one of those comments Rena screened and privately sent to me, then hypocritically tried to console me. "Lisa, I know marrying a capable, conniving financial CEO like Ethan must leave you feeling insecure. But I have to tell you, an older woman who only knows how to work won't attract men, they still prefer girls like me, young, pretty, and feminine." I listened to her affected tone and smiled. "Fine, I'll have HR fire you tomorrow, so you won't be a magnet for men." After saying that, I immediately blocked her and paid no further attention. 10 minutes later, Ethan's accusatory call came in. Over the phone he thundered, "Lisa, what did Rena do to you this time? I finally coaxed her into coming to Paris to let her forgive your rudeness at the celebration dinner, and now you've made her cry again. Are you not happy unless you're stirring up trouble every day? Forgive? Who, me?" I found it laughable. While printing the drafted divorce agreement, I casually asked him, "When are you and Rena coming back? Let's talk about the divorce." There was a hitch in his breathing on the other end of the line. Ethan's irritated tone came through the receiver into my ear. "Lisa, are you ever going to stop? Throwing a tantrum and being jealous have limits. If you keep making a scene for no reason, I'll really get angry." I froze, then couldn't help laughing. I'd already printed the divorce papers in black and white, what was there to be afraid of about you being angry? I signed the divorce papers and left them on your desk. Remember to look when you get back. Bang! Ethan kicked the stool away and ground his teeth into the phone. "Fine, don't regret this." The phone clicked shut, and I shrugged, signing the divorce papers. The next morning when I woke up and unlocked my phone, I saw a message from Ethan. He seemed to have not slept all night. At 4 in the morning he'd posted a public social update. Ethan and Rena stood by a hotel floor-to-ceiling window, their fingers interlaced. The caption read, "7 years through wind and rain, thank goodness I had you." The comments below had tens of thousands of replies, all asking, "Finally official. Is this the mistress Mr. Ethan has hidden for 7 years?" Ethan didn't reply, but pinned a shoe emoji. There was also the company group chat. Ethan said a group announcement. Effective immediately, Lisa's manager position is replaced by Rena. The Western Europe Partnership project is transferred to manager Rena, and tonight's press conference will also be attended by manager Rena in Lisa's stead. He knew I had worked around the clock abroad for 39 days for this deal. He knew I stayed up nights compiling materials by day and socializing by night to secure the partnership, drinking until I felt sick. And yet he still did this, trying to force me to give in and lower my head. My phone vibrated, a new message came in from Ethan. "If you apologize now, there's still a chance." I didn't reply. I tossed my phone aside and went to wash up. Has he forgotten that I single-handedly pushed through the Western Europe project, that the partner recognizes me rather than the company? After freshening up, I went downstairs to buy breakfast. When I came back, I found all my things thrown out of the office. My water cup, my documents, and even the signed divorce papers had been torn in half. The only thing left intact was the wedding photo of Ethan and me, carefully placed on the balcony. Rena sat at my desk, radiant, a look of provocation on her face. "Sorry, Lisa, Ethan has already given me this office. From now on, you can sit over there." She pointed to the utility closet by the bathroom where water was leaking, all puffed up with pride. I couldn't be bothered with her and turned to look at Ethan, who had been silent the whole time. He looked like he hadn't slept all night, his eyes rimmed with red, but the corner of his mouth curled with a nasty little smile. "Rena's right. I've already given her the office, but if you take back the divorce, I might." "No need." I cut him off, reached for the framed photo on the balcony, and, meeting Ethan's slightly triumphant gaze, tossed it into the trash. "Don't want this either. You can throw the rest away too." After I finished speaking, I picked up the laptop from the table and turned to leave. I pretended not to see the reddened eyes of Ethan. It was Monday, tomorrow I had to go abroad to start the new job, and I still needed to go back and pack. I skipped the evening launch event. From home I handled the final communications with our Western European partners in my role as DM's manager. The moment the collaboration was confirmed, I received a message from Ethan. "I've invited the media to livestream tonight's launch. If you don't apologize, the Western Europe project will really have nothing to do with you." I glanced at my phone and turned on Do Not Disturb. It was about time, I needed to catch my flight. At 7 in the evening, the media began arriving one after another. The whole city was broadcasting live. Rena had spent a fortune on a celebrity makeup artist, was painstakingly groomed, and linked her arm with Ethan's, smiling brilliantly. Ethan wore a gray suit, his bearing superb, yet his eyes scanned the audience anxiously. Why hasn't she arrived yet? The thought flashed through Ethan's mind, and his initial excitement gradually gave way to unease. But the press conference had to go on. Ethan pressed his lips together and took the microphone. "Hello everyone, I'm Ethan, CEO of Jiang Corporation. Today's press conference is about the Victoria project that our company and GK Group have reached an agreement on. This project." Wait. A reporter with an International Financial Channel badge hanging from his chest suddenly stood up. "Mr. Ethan, are you sure it's the Victoria project?" Ethan froze. "Of course, this is our company's." An assistant rushed onto the stage, leaning close to Ethan's ear and whispered sharply, "Bad news, Mr. Ethan. 1 minute ago DM Group issued an official statement. The Victoria project has been taken over by DM, and manager Lisa has jumped ship." "What?" Ethan misheard for a moment, stunned, unable to believe his ears. Everyone present understood what it meant to release a project early, especially Ethan, who had navigated the business world for so many years. Rena went pale. That was a billion-yuan contract. Without this European order, whether the company could even survive was in doubt. Had she been dreaming of becoming Mrs. Ethan, would that dream end after only a day? She looked at Ethan with worry, but saw him still frozen in place, unable to utter a word. Ethan could not accept it, after the divorce, that I could be so heartless as to go this far. A reporter stepped up with a microphone, yet still received no answer. He stood there as if petrified, dazed, nearly falling over. All these years I had been very tolerant of him, so he never expected that this time I would be so resolute. My birthday had just passed not long ago, and somehow Ethan suddenly remembered the very first birthday we had celebrated together at the company many years ago. Back then nobody had much money and the company was very rudimentary. He took a cake and, in the makeshift office, blew out the candles to celebrate my birthday. He treated me very well then, feeling guilty that for my birthday he could only make me a simple cake and take me to a nearby restaurant for a meal. I looked at his helpless, bowed head and vowed that someday I would bring him and his company to the pinnacle of the industry. I have always been confident in my abilities, and I truly delivered. Without me over these years, Ethan's company might not have survived, let alone reached the scale it has today. But as the company gradually got on track, and he transformed from an unnoticed nobody into a highly sought-after golden son-in-law, he somehow forgot who it was that had been keeping the company afloat. All these years, thanks to my efforts, he paraded about as Mr. Ethan and soaked up the spotlight. Everyone praised him as a self-made man and a business genius, not knowing that I, hidden behind him all along, was the real helmsman of the company. I used to complain that Ethan refused to take me to social events and refused to make my role public. But he told me it was because he loved me so much that he didn't want any other factors mixed into our relationship. Although I felt his reasoning was flawed, I liked him so much that, blinded by love, I accepted it. It wasn't until Rena appeared as Mrs. Ethan that I realized how absurd I had been. He still seemed unclear about what losing me would mean for him. Perfect, let him watch all his years of hopes and expectations turn to nothing, and let him know that when I was around he was the celebrated Mr. Ethan, without me, he was nobody. The secretary beside him, seeing Ethan stunned, quickly pulled him back and said anxiously, "Mr. Ethan, you have to think of something. How are we going to explain that European deal to the press here? This issue not only affects the company's interests, but also our capabilities and public image." No sooner had the secretary finished speaking than the reporter's questions boiled over, becoming impossible to control. "Mr. Ethan, may I ask, has Victoria Engineering really been taken over by the Jiang Group? Or is there some unsavory secret behind this? Mr. Ethan, I've heard GK won the contract because they poached a key person from your company. Can you explain that at all? Hello, Mr. Ethan. We've received word that you had a very close relationship with manager Fong, who has since resigned, and that the Ms. Lin beside you is suspected of being the mistress who pushed him out. Is any of this true?" One aggressive question after another left Ethan unable to answer. Worse still, the rumors the reporters raised weren't just sharp, they were true. After a barrage of questions from every direction, he didn't even get a chance to explain. Besides, I handled this matter too decisively. Now that my reputation is already ruined, there really is no other way except to bring me back to the company to continue handling the Victoria case. With the help of the secretary and the security guards, Ethan and his group scattered and fled the press conference site, sitting in the backstage lounge. Everyone at the Jiang company was in utter chaos. Not only did they have to deal with today's mess, they also had to scramble on PR to suppress the trending topic. But things happened so suddenly, and the number of people discussing it grew one after another, it was impossible to contain. At the same time, DM kept pouring fuel on the fire, introducing to everyone the close cooperation between them and GK on the Victoria project. Besides that, because of Rena's high-profile announcement, online speculation about the relationship among the three of us ran rampant. A large portion of people believed Rena was the mistress who forced me out, while Ethan was the despicable man who abandoned his poor wife after gaining wealth. For a company that wasn't yet very large, such an external image was undoubtedly a fatal blow. But at that moment, Ethan seemed unable to hear the voices around him. His fingers gripped the phone so hard it looked as if he might crush it. On closer look, the dim screen kept calling the same number, but that number never connected, until the phone's battery was completely drained. Ethan realized his number had been blocked by me. He couldn't contain his violent temper, and smashed the phone onto the floor, shattering it to pieces. Ignoring his secretary who was still on the phone trying to get the trending topic taken down, he grabbed the phone from his hand and continued dialing my number. The first time, the second time, the third time, still nothing. The final barrage was a flurry of text messages. "Lisa, where are you right now? Weren't you in charge of that project in Europe? What on earth is going on? Are you trying to kill me? Don't be ridiculous. No matter what, I will not agree to a divorce. come back to me and handle these things. We're husband and wife, we're supposed to be together for life, have you forgotten? Message after message went unanswered. Ethan motioned for his staff to keep calling, but with every call that came in, my phone simply went dark. The secretary, disgruntled, held up the phone with its red call button and said, "Boss, Lisa's turned it off." At that, Ethan's face went utterly dark and sour. What made it worse was that, even now, things hadn't yet reached the point of no return. Soon another assistant secretary burst in from the hallway, frantic, and brought Ethan particularly bad news. "Mr. Ethan, it's bad, manager Lisa posted your divorce agreement on Instagram, and..." "And what?" Ethan asked, his face ashen. "The post also had manager Rena's 7 years through wind and rain, lucky to have you message from that day." The assistant's voice dwindled until it was almost inaudible, but everyone had already grasped the meaning. Rena seemed to awaken from a long dream. She came over from the corner, grabbed the secretary assistant, half questioning, half scolding. "What did you say? That bitch Lisa, who gave her permission to do that?" If Rena had the nerve to be someone's mistress, she should have known that once things came to light she could be drowned by the spit of the gossiping masses. My post on Instagram was nothing less than a hammer to crush that adulterous pair. So by taking the Victoria project away, in the eyes of the world I wouldn't be seen as heartless, I'd be seen as clever, someone who avenges slights. No sooner had she finished speaking than Ethan slapped Rena. The blow was hard, her face swelled instantly, and she fell to the ground, unable to believe Ethan had really struck her. "Who allowed you to insult her?" "Lisa is Ethan's wife, what are you?" Ethan thought of the countless times in the past when, after I had given up all hope, he forgave me, and he regretted in his heart the days he had neglected me. But he felt that no matter what had happened, I still loved him, so he secretly vowed he would win me back and regain my heart. He would not agree to divorce me. Everything that had happened in the past was just a small episode in our lives. After going abroad, I thrived at GK. Daniel appreciated me and put me on many projects, and since I had brought my dowry with me when I jumped ship, the other senior executives who had grumbled about my parachute hire had no real complaints to make. Here, effort and income are proportional, and I no longer had to do 50 million worth of work for a 5,000 salary. I felt very at ease. Work was busy, life became full, and I gradually forgot the past. I stopped holding grudges against Ethan and Rena, or rather, I was too lazy to bother with it. What I didn't expect was that this easy life lasted only a short while before an uninvited guest interrupted it. It was almost autumn then, and the plane trees at the company's entrance were shedding leaf after leaf. Ethan's tall, familiar figure stood rooted in the soft European breeze. His familiar silhouette made it clear that the past few months had drained him physically and mentally. He no longer cared about dressing up. He looked worn, many years older. I had no mood to entangle with him, nor did I want to speak, intending to pretend I didn't know him and slip away silently. Unfortunately, I failed. As I drew near, Ethan immediately grabbed my hand, pleading with his eyes for me to talk to him. I shrugged off his hand and said coldly, "What is there for us to talk about?" 10 minutes, Ethan asked cautiously. "Lisa, I've never begged anyone in my life, let me beg you this once. Give me 10 minutes, please?" Seeing him look so pitiful, I couldn't help but feel a stir of emotion. We had worked together in the country for years, closing one deal after another, and he actually said he'd never had to beg anyone. How ironic. Yes, the company's past profits, each contract, relying on my connections and favors, drinking until my stomach cramped at banquet tables, staying up late to work on proposals to get deals done. He never had to give anything, so how could he possibly have had to beg anyone? I suddenly grew very curious about what other hurtful things could come out of that mouth that couldn't even spit out ivory, so I stopped trying to pull my hand away. Instead I picked a nearby cafe, set my stopwatch, and waited for the coming 10 minutes. "Lisa, where on earth have you been lately? Do you know how long I've been looking for you?" Ethan was still the same as before, spouting one flowery line after another. When I publicly jumped ship with Victoria's case, even a fool would know where I was, let alone him. To show how devoted he was, he really spared no effort. I sneered, glanced at my watch, and said, "If all you have to say is this kind of nonsense, I don't think we need to waste another 8 minutes." Ethan was taken aback and a bit speechless. He said sullenly, "Lisa, there's no need for us to be so confrontational. I've been looking for you a long time, your leaving was so sudden, I wasn't prepared at all. Couples fight at the head of the bed and make up at the foot. I haven't done anything to betray you, so why did you have to make it so final and want a divorce? Even if you insist on divorcing, you owe me an explanation, don't you? I don't believe it's because of Rena. Wasn't it just a joke not long ago? If you don't like her coming around, I'll fire her so you never have to see her again, okay? Or is it really about that European account? If that's the case, then After so many years of marriage, he still doesn't understand me at all." I didn't want to listen to his guesses any longer, so I cut him off and got straight to the point. "Ethan, do you remember what I said to you on our wedding day?" He frowned and struggled to recall for a long time, but failed. Of course, I had never expected him to remember what I said that day. Originally, it was just a mango, just a joke. I was the one who couldn't take it. But Ethan, the one who hurt me, could be anyone in the world, just not you. He saw me silent for a long time, as if recalling something, then suddenly exclaimed, "You wouldn't be mad over that glass of mango juice, would you? Is that necessary? It was just one glass. If you won't drink it, we won't make that kind of joke again. Besides, I saw that day, you weren't allergic. Or is it that you're upset about Rena?" Ethan tore at my wound without a second thought. I sat there staring at him for a long time, finally losing my strength, leaning back in the chair, and in a voice that even I thought might be calm told him, "When I was little my father had an affair and brought the other woman home. That woman gave me a mango, mangoes were rare then, and I, curious, sat on the sofa and ate it. My mother came home, saw the mango in my hand, didn't say a word, and jumped out the window." Ethan opened his mouth, his expression shifted from shock to stunned silence. "You say it was just a joke, maybe it is for you, but it isn't for me. So can I go now?" I stood up to leave. Ethan knew that if he let me go this time, there would be no chance for us after that, so once again he blocked the way between me and the door. "I'm sorry, Lisa, I didn't know. What happened in the past was my fault. Please forgive me, won't you? I deserve to die, hit me, hit me." He grabbed my hand and kept striking himself again and again. I was so furious from his pulling that I didn't hesitate to give him a sharp slap and yelled, "Have you had enough of this? What I'm saying isn't to make you apologize to me, but to tell you it's over between us. Mangoes are my bottom line. You crossed that line for Rena, so there's no way things can ever be between us again, do you understand?" He looked as if he truly couldn't comprehend and said, unbearably sad, "So you hate me that much, hate me enough to take Victoria away, to drive Jong's, which we founded together, into bankruptcy, just to get revenge on me? You're overthinking it. Victoria was under my care to begin with, it's only right that I take my things. Don't pester me anymore." Ethan couldn't hear me. He seemed to have left his body, muttering to himself, "If I didn't mind you taking Victoria, if there was no Rena, no," his voice suddenly went hoarse. "If there hadn't been that mango that day, would you come back to me? Ifs, what a world of ifs exists." I wrenched my hand free from his and said firmly, "No." Then I left the cafe, not knowing what expression the person behind me wore. After that day Ethan kept coming to the company to pester me, refusing to return to the country. Daniel, worried I might take him back, came every day to brainwash me. He said he must have come for that billion-dollar contract, not because he truly loved me, and warned me never to go back to him, promising he'd make sure to drive away this rotten peach blossom. Of course I knew Daniel meant well, and the Victoria collaboration between the two companies was already underway and more than halfway done. Even if I were a total novice, there was no way I could run off now. I told Daniel, "Don't worry, I won't go with him." Daniel looked at me suspiciously and said, "That's not certain. Back when you were earning $5,000 a month you could help him for so many years, what if you ran off now?" I smiled faintly and didn't reply. What happened back then was back then, now is now. Fortunately, Ethan wasn't a man of great perseverance. He courted me for a long time, and when he saw I wouldn't change my mind and realized some things couldn't be forced, he finally chose to return home in low spirits. Rena came back into his life on the very same day he went home. Someone bold enough to steal my job, of course, had no idea how indispensable I was to that company. She assumed that even without me, Ethan could keep the business afloat. She indulged in dreams of becoming Mrs. Ethan, craving a marriage into wealth, so the moment he returned she eagerly rushed to his side. "Ethan, stop being sad over someone who isn't worth it. I'm here. Even without the project she holds, we can still keep the company afloat. You can't slack off. Tomorrow we'll go negotiate a partnership. You need to make that woman know how right she was to choose me." Ethan was dizzy from the sudden surge of determination she had lit in him, and he forgot just how capable he really was. After living off a woman so long, he actually began to believe he had some skill and could continue being their CEO. But he forgot that what businessmen care about most is reputation. Not getting the Victoria project was already unfortunate. The fact that I had earlier exposed his domestic infidelity and Rena's role as the other woman only made things worse. His company and his personal reputation in the industry were ruined. Who would dare do business with him now? At first, Rena was still full of fighting spirit, working overtime on proposals while secretly stalking my performance abroad. But the more my career took off, the more unbalanced and jealous she became, and finally, in the third month that Zhang's company couldn't pay salaries and was robbing Peter to pay Paul, she couldn't hold back and exploded. "Do you fucking even know how to run a company? If this keeps going, it will collapse sooner or later. When that happens, I reckon I'll have to beg with you on the street." Ethan couldn't understand the string of professional terms popping up on his computer to begin with, and hearing Rena yell only made him even more furious. "You still have the nerve to talk to me. What about you compares to Lisa? For things like this before, she never made me worry. I only had to sign some papers and stamp them. Why should I work so hard?" The two of them hurled insults at each other, giving the other no face. But the company's crisis did not end with their quarrel. Not long after, Ethan's company collapsed. To fill the financial gap, the court forcibly evicted the two of them from the villa where he and I had once lived together, because the house had to be auctioned off. Yet even though their lives had been turned upside down, neither of them chose to settle down and work steadily to make a living. But he had fallen into gambling to sustain their accustomed lavish lifestyle, and before long had squandered every last asset. The last I heard of them was that they were caught for theft and imprisoned, sentenced to 6 years, the news reporting the final fate of those two once celebrated figures. As for me, my work and life grew better day by day. 2 years later, thanks to my outstanding performance and leadership in the company, landing several high-profit deals that had seemed nearly impossible, the company promoted me to executive CEO of DM Group China. On the day I officially took office, the company invited many media outlets. Many of them were the same reporters who had attended Ethan's press conference back then. They were very interested in what I'd been through these past few years and asked many questions, which I answered one by one. The very last reporter asked a question completely unrelated to today's press conference. He said, "Ms. Lisa, may I ask if you know that today is the day your ex-husband, Mr. Ethan, is officially going to prison? When you suddenly changed jobs back then, there were all kinds of rumors and no conclusion. Would you be willing to share with us the love and hate between you and Mr. Jiang?" I pondered for a moment and smiled. "I'm grateful for everything that happened and I wish the best for the future, but the past can only remain the past. It's time to turn the page." The reporter didn't ask any more. "I suppose the past ends here. I'm sure I'll be very happy, happier and happier."